Turn up the tempo, turn up the volume. Scott Frost has UCF going fast in his first spring back in Orlando.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. Joining me, as he does every week, is my good friend, Andrew Gluco from The Last Word on Sports, expert on all things UCF. Of course, I'm your host, Mike G, semi-expert on all things UCF. We're talking tempo and offense today. We're talking about the cohesiveness of the team, and we're going to update you guys on open practice dates, but we're going to start with tempo. Reports out early out of fall camp is UCF is going fast, and players seem to like it, Andrew.
They do, and I have to correct you a little bit because I know you're already getting in fall mode. You're getting in regular season mode. We pump those brakes, man. We're barely tapping spring practice right now. I know you're excited. I'm excited, but hey, there's some excitement in the air. There's a lot of things going on, but hey, spring practice with a new coaching regime. This is all about starting to implement a new system and getting players to break old habits and build new habits, because this could be a very different team from last year.
Yeah, look, a quick quote from Scott Frost. Speaking of the system, you brought up the system. He said, it's kind of like learning a different language. You can't learn it all in one day. You've got to learn bits and pieces of it. Our kids are barely conversational right now. So speaking of the switch that they're making offensively, a lot of times coaches are bringing in their own terminology, Andrew, their own system, and just catching up. Getting into the playbook is always key to knowing your assignment and making a system run effectively. How far through that do you think they get this spring in terms of making everybody fluent in Scott Frost's system?
Well, definitely not fluent. That's going to take some time. And again, you got to break the old habits. You got to deprogram some of these players, not only just the ones that were holdovers from last year, but ones that came from other teams, freshmen, transfers. They all have to learn this new system. There's no player that's coming into the season that's used to this system. Scott Frost is bringing his own flavor, and while there are former players and coaches that be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what he's going to be doing. It's getting these players all on the same page. It's going to take time to gel. It's going to take time to build conditioning up and the mentality of tempo. It's weird because Gus Malzahn wrote the book on the no huddle offense, and that's not to blow smoke. He really did. But things just really didn't evolve. Yeah, sure, he used no huddle from time to time, but it wasn't really a tempo speed offense. We saw that at UCF in 2016, and even more so in 17 when things got even better and more locked in, year two. So it's going to take time. It's going to take work, and the spring practice is all about starting to reprogram these players. As you said, it's like learning, as Scott Frost said, it's like learning a new language. Well, when you first start a new language, you're saying these words, but you're translating it in your head. You're not fluent. You're not thinking in the right language. So, you're in your first Spanish class in grade school. You're learning your first words. You're translating them in your head to English because that's the language as opposed to just thinking in that language. So it's going to take time to kind of get from having to translate in your head on the fly to be able to automatically just know what these words mean. But these are not little kids. That they are not stupid. They can learn this stuff. They're designed and trained to learn this stuff. And I'm pretty sure Frost and his coaching staff are going to do whatever it takes to kind of get the point home.
Trying to get the kids to learn at the level that you teach is something that we've seen coaches employ different tactics throughout the years. Nick Saban brought in a company that analyzed whether their players were left brain or right brain thinkers, and they did these personality profiles to see how their ability to learn matched up with the coach's ability to be able to teach. And then it told them how they needed to communicate with kids to make sure that concepts and ideas were being communicated effectively. I wonder if Scott Frost will employ anything like that, if he's used anything like that in his past. Certainly when you're putting in a new system and you don't have a base of kids who understand and can help bring other kids along, I think that kind of stuff can be really important, especially in the beginning. Miles Montgomery, redshirt senior running back, said, "We have some work to do. It's a new type of offense, fast-paced all the time. Eventually, we're going to get used to that, and it's going to be some fireworks, man." You see the way I play. When I get tackled, I get back up. I like that already. That's the way I play. The whole offense is doing that. It's right up my alley. It's right up UCF's alley. Look, guys seem to like playing at the speed that Scott Frost is going to want to play at. And I think that it's encouraging that they feel like they're having fun. It sounds like they're having fun out there with this new system.
Well, energy is contagious. You can, if you have a good energy, it can spread and bring others up. If you have a bad energy, it can bring everyone down. But I want to make one point on the learning aspect. There's 4 traditional styles of learning. Mm-hmm. There's auditory learning by hearing. There's visual by seeing. There's learning by writing, because you develop muscle memories from when you write something. And then there's kinesthetic learning by doing. Traditional, like when you think of, coaches and the whiteboard and all that stuff, you kind of hit all 4 of those, because they write the play on the board. There's your visual. They talk about the play. There's your auditory. A lot of players will then write the play in a book or some paper that they have in front of them. There's the writing. And then they go out and practice these plays. So they're doing it. So there's all those 4 traditional ways get hit when you're reviewing this stuff. Mm-hmm. When you're reviewing film, you're talking about it in different ways. So, not everyone learns, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's just people learn different ways. But there's no one size fits all because of that. So you have to really hit each style, and it's going to click with different players in different ways. And you have to, and the coaching staff has to recognize that and then focus on that for that particular player.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun watching them have fun. And I'll tell you what, if Scott Frost can bring the fun back to football at UCF, I think that's another step to getting kids to staying engaged, to Andrew, and feeling like they have a chance to win. You've got to install a belief every week that you can go out and win football games. And if he's doing that, watch out for UCF. I think in year 1, they're going to give, I'm not saying they're going to go out and go 10-2, but they will give a lot of people trouble. I think they have a chance to sneak up on a lot of people. Let's not forget Arizona State, that nobody was talking about Cameron Scadaboo. Nobody was talking about them. They were at the bottom of the conference. And afterthought, 16 out of 16 teams, they were voted, and they went out and they won the whole damn thing. And so I'm not saying UCF can do the same, but certainly with the right guy at the helm and the right system and a bought-in player base, you can make some noise. But look, he's got to get all of these guys to play together. We're going to talk about team cohesiveness next, right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Nissan, guys. Nissan has their their team of the week. And each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart from top-seeded stars to unexpected upsets. These guys showcase the strength and the sheer power to push their teams forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut team of the week is the Arkansas Razorbacks from the SEC. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They accomplished all this without their second leading scorer, Boogie Fland, for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder Adu Thero so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done here. Look, it's clear cut. that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next adventure. You can find your next adventure at shopnissanusa.com. That's shopnissanusa.com. Frost is looking for cohesiveness. He talked about this early on in the spring. He talked about, hey, I got to get all these guys to play together. I've got to take some guys who were here, some guys who weren't, and I've got to take a lot of guys who don't know my system, and I have to make sure that we are all on the same page. There's a number of ways that we see coaches try to achieve team cohesiveness, particularly in the offseason. I've seen coaches have paintball wars. I've seen coaches jump off of Olympic-sized diving boards trying to get buy-in from their team. Look, if you're Scott Frost, I don't think this offseason is going to be about gimmicks. I think it's going to be about selling a vision, right? This is your second go-around in Orlando, and I think that it has to be about, look, I covered one coach who he met with every single player at the end of spring, with them and their position coach. And they did an exhaustive review on their performance for the spring. And they were honest with some guys, Andrew, and saying, look, you may need to find someplace else to play. Right? But here's what we're trying to do here. If you choose to stay, here's what we need from you. And I think that's probably going to be the most important thing this spring. Like, look, doesn't mean he can't do fun things with his guys to help build team camaraderie and team cohesiveness. But I think that most of all, guys just want to know where they fit in this new Scott Frost era, and if there's a future for them, particularly in the NIL era.
As we've seen in basketball, a good team that's not together it has a larger chance of losing to a mediocre team that plays together.
Yeah.
So you got to get buy-in. You've got to get that, you've got to create that gelling, because, you want to create a culture, and you're assuming a team that had a culture in free fall. So you have to hit the reset button and find who your team leaders are, and then utilize them to help corral the team. It's like herding cats. Everyone's got different motivations for what they're doing. Some maybe for NIL money, some maybe for their legacies to UCF, or they wanted to stay close to home, and so mom and dad can see them. Everyone's there for a different reason as far as what got them there and what's keeping them there. But you want to get them together as far as, here's how we want to play, here's the scheme we're going to use, and here's the job that you are being tasked to do. If you can't do that, you may have an uncomfortable conversation of like, this just isn't working. But I expect the coaches, especially throughout spring, give the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, schools are starting to go away from traditional spring games, and they're focusing more on the practice aspect and the scrimmage aspect. So they're looking to build on those fundamentals, which is what scrimmages and those practices are all about. It's about building on fundamentals as opposed to pomp and circumstance that a traditional spring game would give. So, with the amount of work that Frost and his staff has in front of them, it's not a bad thing to focus more on the fundamentals, which is what that cohesiveness really is. It's, getting the offensive line on the same page for line calls and stuff like this. Is, again, teaching a foreign language. If they all get taught the same language, that helps with cohesiveness. It helps bring them together. And another thing, and we saw this a lot at UCF when Josh Heupel was head coach and Randy Shannon was defensive coordinator, because Shannon was not a Heupel hire. He was a Danny White hire. That was probably one of White's big mistakes, is having that disconnect. Well, the players had a disconnect too. There was an us versus them thing. And that's what Frost cannot afford to have with this team. Even though it's offense, defense, there has to be a camaraderie involved without that artificial barrier put up.
Yeah, look, I agree with you 100%. I just think, again, you've got a lot of things to do this offseason, and he's going to be a very busy guy, as he said in the quotes that we quoted in the last segment. He's got a system to put in. He's got a bunch of kids who are barely conversational in the language that is Scott Frost right now. And so you can't get so lost in that process that you forget to build culture. And I guess, somebody who covered Scott Frost in his first tenure at UCF, answer this question for me. What is that culture? What is a Scott Frost culture, right? What does a Scott Frost team feel like? What do the players think that is, right? Like if, he brought in a former player from one of those teams in McKenzie Milton, he's going to be helping him build what exactly, Andrew, in terms of team culture and communication and teamwork?
Oh, Scott Frost, while during times when he had to coach, was did what he had to do, but he was able to turn the switch on and off. And off the field, he was able to be a very trusted figure for these players. Not every coach is like that. Some are always in coach mode as opposed to being a friend or a father, more of a father figure. He created an atmosphere that allowed a guy like Shaquem Griffin to basically live in the practice facility. He would sleep, in Coach Frost's office, and then get up at the crack of dawn to watch film and train and stuff. He allowed, that kind of opportunity. So, I mean, it really depends on the players. But, with his tenure being so short, he, that culture only, got so far. Some guys embraced it, but others were still learning it. And, the tenure ended so fast. You switch gears to Josh Heupel, who's a very different personality than Scott Frost. Scott Frost was always that kind of talk quiet, but carry a big stick kind of guy, as opposed to Heupel, who can talk and talk a lot.
Yeah.
You have to adjust with that. And then obviously, I mean, you and I, you more so than me, know the personality of Gus Malzahn, which is, yes, very different than a Scott Frost would be, or even a Josh Heupel. So, you're dealing with these very different personalities, but you'll see, I think, early on, you may see some bumps, and you're going to, as players learn coaches learn players. But as the season wears on, even if the results aren't there, I think you're going to see stuff starting to come together. His first year, he assumed a team that went winless, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's the most talented winless team you'll ever see.
Right.
There were some real dogs on that team, like in a good way. They were some really talented players. The coaching staff just literally fell apart around them. They didn't know how to win. But Frost was able to get them over the course of the season to kind of buy into his plan. And the result, they went 6-7, 6-6 in the regular season. They lost the bowl game. So again, my floor for them is 6-6. That is my floor for them.
Okay. All right. I like a 6-6 floor.
I'm still sticking with that. I stuck with that, close to hiring time. I'm still sticking with that now. But you may see some hiccups early on. But
what you're feeling?
Yeah, it's you're going to build it up, during the season, and I think you're going to see, early mishaps, against those non-conference foes. But I think you're going to see the gelling really start to pick up midway through the season.
Yeah, look, he's got so many things he's got to deal with. I am covering the NCAA tournament right now, and I can tell you, I had an opportunity to talk with Auburn's AD, John Cohen, about the $20.5 million cap that's coming. We've covered this extensively. You were one of the first to report on, UCF dissolving the kingdom into their competitive success fund that they're setting up, right? And after June 30th, you no longer can subscribe to the kingdom. You got to go to this new thing. And, he gave me even some more clarification into what ADs are thinking, what Terry Mohajir may be thinking. We know that they're adding 74 scholarships across the Olympic sports. What wasn't clear in the statement that UCF put out was that $2.5 million of that 20.5 is actually going to cover those 74 additional scholarships. So your cap for what you can give in NIL is actually going to be 18 million. And that's what the schools have to work with. Spoke with somebody at Baylor. They're allotting 5% of their cap to women's basketball, which allots to about $900,000, I think. Check me on the math. But there's a commitment to women's basketball right there. There is no requirement now that any amount has to be spent on any one sport.
Right,
So,
and it's not limited to men or women's sports. And from what I understand, Title IX does not play a role in this. So
not at all.
Expect this to be very football heavy. Then with men's basketball, and you may see a sprinkling of some other sports after that.
I'm working on gathering the numbers for UCF, but again, I had to do this for an SEC school, and football produced $60 million in profit, while basketball produced $5 million in profit. But the athletic department as a whole only produced $11 million in total profit. So that means all the other sports combined cost you like $50 million to exist. And so that's why they're going to get the lion's share of the funds, because these other sports don't exist without football, period. Point blank.
And UCF, for Division I standards, fields the minimum number of men's sports. So they've always had I shouldn't say always, but they for a long time have had a very lean setup as far as their sports are involved. There've been talks of maybe men's track and field at some point. That's something that football players have wanted, because there's a number of players who would run and perform in track and field. UCF doesn't have a program. And one of Title IX is a large reason with the scholarships and whatnot. They've got a lean setup. Maybe with things changing, they can look into it. But we've finally seen, and this was a matter of time. I'm going a little bit off topic on this, just for just a moment. Something for us to think about. It won't impact UCF, but it could impact schools that we may be connected to. The first Division I school has finally announced that they're dropping down as a result of the changing landscape.
Wow.
That's St. Francis in Pennsylvania in the Northeast Conference. And there's
Okay.
probably going to be others that follow. But this, UCF, has played schools like Monmouth and Siena in baseball, the small Northeastern school. So this could have an impact on, some future UCF scheduling opportunities, because, this is the first school is going down from Division I to Division III. Conferences change geography. Travel's become difficult. Chicago State's a part of the Northeastern Conference.
Yep.
UCF joining the Big 12 was a major, major boon, because that extra money come in helps with the increase in travel. Just the cost of travel in general, not just distance-wise, but just, fuel costs and all the other is going up. So, this could impact UCF scheduling opportunities down the road with schools that may not be willing to make some of these trips because costs are going up. So, not UCF directly, but it's something to keep an eye on as we start getting closer to this new NIL landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. Great information there. Andrew Gluco from The Last Word on Sports. So I love having you on, Andrew. We talk about anything here, anything UCF. But look, we've got some updates for fans on open practice dates, and we'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Visit Supply House for all your supply needs. And look, you get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, With a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person. I cannot stand automated prompts. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com and use code SH5.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Andrew, look, we've got some updates on some open practice dates for UCF. They're going to have some dates here on April 5th where fans can come in and take a look at what they got all going on. And I believe April 11th, again, will be another open date for UCF fans to come in and check out. Now, you noted that I think on the 5th, it's a weird time. It's like from 10:30 to 12:30 or something like that.
And that's a Saturday.
That's a Saturday, right? And then on the 11th, they've got 6:30 to 8:30, I believe, where you can come and check them out.
6 to 8, and that's a Friday.
Yeah, on a Friday. Yep. They look. They're doing some construction in the stadium, trying to update things, which may actually disrupt the spring game. Now, before we started recording, you had some thoughts on what this might mean for the spring game. We may not get a true spring game format due to these construction efforts. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Well, basically, they're using these two open practice windows to effectively replace the spring game because Roth Tower is, as we know, is being expanded, and they're doing a lot of work because the way they're doing the work is going to be over the course of 25 into 26, and they need to make the stadium still usable in 25 while still working on construction. So they've got a lot of work to do. They've got the fences up. They're doing all their all their land clearing and all that other stuff. So they gotta mix this in. So seats are going to be limited as far as attendance. They're going to require RSVPing for these, but these are open practices other than you have to RSVP for them. You can catch that on UCF's athletics website. And, this is not going to be a traditional spring game, but that's not a bad thing because we've talked about this with other schools, Nebraska, Ohio State, Texas, going away from traditional spring games because of that spring transfer window. Creating a lot of film for these players to potentially market themselves, and schools are afraid of tampering. So this is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when your focus as a new coach for a program, Scott Frost, is about the fundamentals and building a template within the program as opposed to putting a show on for fans.
Right. I do want to make sure I want to restate the dates here. My screen closed down for me. It's Saturday, April 5th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at FBC Mortgage Stadium. And then on Friday, April 11th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the stadium. The note officially says, due to ongoing construction projects and stadium preparations for the upcoming season, accessibility and capacity will be very limited. And they ask that all fans planning to attend RSVP. Now, you can find this link on the UCF website. If you Google the spring practice dates, it's going to be the first thing that pops up. Parking is free and available on first come, first serve basis. The lots open from 7 a.m. to on April 5th and at 4 p.m. on April 11th. So make sure you RSVP if you're a UCF fan trying to get out and get first look at what Scott Frost has going on this spring. You don't want to miss those open date availabilities. I promise it's so much fun to be able to get out there. It should be a family event. Take the wife, take the kids, take something to eat and go enjoy some spring football, Scott Frost style. So looking forward to seeing what reports come out of those open practices there. Andrew, look, man, great conversation today. We're going to be talking UCF basketball. They're in the Crown Invitational. We're going to talk about that. So that starts actually, I believe, on the day of one of these open practices, April 5th, does not?
No, it actually starts on the first day is March 31st, and game one is April 1st. So I believe there are games on April 5th. But it would be, earlier in the day. It's in Las Vegas. It'll be on TV. If UCF does make the semifinals, it will be on Fox. All the first two rounds will be on FS1. So as you can see, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. That's 5:30 Eastern on FS1. Tuesday, April 1st. That'll be that first round matchup against Oregon State.
Yep. So sorry, I froze there for a second. But did you see the bracket I put up?
Yes.
Yeah, put the bracket up. Yeah. So
we're good.
Look, it's it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, talking about UCF basketball here, giving us a little action there. It's so funny. God willing, I will be in San Antonio covering the Final Four the weekend of the 5th. Right. So it's going to be still a lot of college basketball left to watch. We're excited to cover every bit of it for UCF. Let's see what Johnny Dawkins can do in this tournament. Probably be an opportunity for some guys, given the news that we've got, to get out there and show if they've got a future with UCF basketball. Andrew Gluco, thank you for joining me, man. Before we get out of here, as always, tell people where they can find you.
You can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at Statboy Drew, and you can catch my work on The Last Word on College Football, a part of the Last Word on Sports family.
That's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF. Thank you for making us your first listen of every day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Big 12. You can find them on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.